Okay, well, I think in the effort to maintain some time here, we'll just get started without Bob, and we'll just do a quick roll call. We won't do the approval of minutes because we don't have a quorum, and we'll give a quick CBO update, and hopefully Bob will be able to join by that time. Okay, so Jeff Kraft. And we've got Greg Winkler, Brian Martin, Jordan Beasley.
I'm here.
Thank you. Delilah Collins.
I am here.
Hi, Delilah. Thanks for joining today. Carrie Paycoach.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Thanks for joining. Catherine Keegan.
Here.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Catherine Redhorse.
Good morning. I'm here.
Morning, Catherine. Jennifer Lewis. Okay. And Andy Frohard.
Morning.
Morning. Hi, Andy. Stephanie Bennett, are you also here? Okay. Okay. Great. So just a quick update on the CBO. So we are well underway with our spring data collection. The most important information on this slide is that the deadline for data to be to the GIS department is March 5th, which is coming up very quickly. So we've received new data from 7 providers. We have 18 providers that are update in progress and 17 providers that are no change. There's outstanding and investigating 115 providers. So there's the link to the data submission guidance. If you are unclear or if you need support, you can always reach out to our team, to the GIS department if you ever have any questions. We do have an NDA available. So if you're interested in that, please do reach out sooner rather than later. The other update is that we have our February Lunch and Learn coming up, and this is Project Thor. And our Lunch and Learn series is a great opportunity to get involved with the Colorado Broadband Office and to learn about a lot of different topics. We've done a Lunch and Learn on Project Thor, but because there's been so much change, we decided to do another one. So please stay tuned for that. The other big news is that the new executive director for the Colorado Broadband Office will be announced today. So please stay tuned for that. There should be information later today announcing the person. And then last but not least, our own Teresa Ferguson will be working on a series regarding municipal broadband. You will see on our good news today that we are lucky enough to have a partner here with us, Valerie Dodd, who's going to talk about what she's doing with the city of Longmont. And this is just a teaser. This is an opportunity to see a little bit more about what is happening in the municipal broadband arena, and to stay tuned. That series will probably be coming around in spring, late spring. And I'm hearing that Bob Pfeiffer is with us. Are you with us?
Yep, sorry about that. I was actually getting an update on my Zoom, which is always perfect timing. Let's learn, do it 5 minutes early, right?
No worries. So we've done everything but.
Hey, Sarah, also Antonio Martinez is with you this morning as well.
Hi, Antonio.
Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
My first day, and I have a board meeting right away. Love it.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for covering. It sounds like everything but roll call right now. And approval of minutes.
We just need to do the approval of minutes. We've done roll call and the update.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Okay, Brian, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Abstention? Okay, those minutes will carry as approved. Anything else on there, Sarah, we need to talk about on that first one? If not, I'll move into public comment.
Yeah, go right ahead into public comment.
All right. Now we're going to move into the public comment phase. There's some instructions on your screen, and for those that are on the phone, so please, Sarah, I'm not sure how they can do it with if they're just on the phone. Is there a code that they can use, or I think
Just speak up.
yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in doing public comment, please raise your hand. There's a raise hand function. There's instructions on your screen. Do we have any public comments? I don't see any. Okay, not hearing any. We'll go ahead and move on to the next.
Okay.
Next up, we've allocated 10 minutes for good news on municipal broadband. So we'll hand it over to Teresa Ferguson.
Good morning, Bob. Thank you. And good morning, board members and members of the public. It's my pleasure to introduce today's good news guest speaker, Valerie Dodd. Valerie is the executive director of Nextlight, the City of Longmont's municipal broadband service provider. Valerie has over 25 years of experience as a telecom and broadband executive, beginning her career with Alltel, which is now Windstream, as many of you know, rolling out broadband DSL in the 90s. Valerie also spent over 18 years with CenturyLink, holding various leadership positions in operations, mergers, and was CenturyLink's Vice President General Manager for the state of New Mexico. Valerie is here today to share the good news of how municipal broadband is reshaping the broadband landscape for consumers. Valerie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I appreciate the introduction very much and the invitation to be here today. I'd like to say I have more than 10 minutes of good news to share, but that's okay. I'll just hit the key highlights. So thank you, board, public, everyone that's attending. Really appreciate the opportunity to sing the praises of Nextlight. I also have to fairly say that I wasn't there to birth Nextlight in the city of Longmont. I've just been there about a year and a half, but I'm happy to get there and take us to the next level. So with Nextlight in the city of Longmont, really, I want to start with the mission statement. And really, it's like, why did the city of Longmont choose to embark in such a hefty endeavor? Well, it's really because their commitment is about enhancing the quality of life for their citizens. And I've never seen a city more committed to their community than Longmont. And so it's a real honor to be part of that effort and to continue to help find new ways to deliver value and quality of life for the citizens and the residents there. So on the next slide, you'll see that the timeline is kind of extensive. I don't mean for it to be discouraging or daunting by any means, but I want people to know that the city has been very visionary and for a long time thought about how do we really leverage communications? How do we leverage fiber? And really part of the foundation for Nextlight was the fact that the city of Longmont had already been in the electric business for over 100 years. So that was kind of a pathway. And part of that electricity comes from the partnership with PRPA, the Platte River Power Authority. And so back in the mid-90s, they were trying to figure out how do we deploy a fiber network to share information and communicate and send data. And so eventually they did build a 17-mile fiber loop. Well, then they said, well, why don't we do more with that fiber loop? Why don't we look at getting into the broadband business? And so Longmont really started to scratch and sniff and see what was out there, partnered with a company called Adesta. Unfortunately, they went bankrupt before there was a deployment. Meanwhile, they have shaken the bushes and stirred things up, and the competition's paying attention and says, we don't want these cities taking over and deploying broadband, a space that we had historically owned. And so, as you all are probably very familiar, Senate Bill 152 was passed. The city of Longmont said, no, we want to take back our destiny. And so they tried to repeal Senate Bill 152. Unfortunately, it was unsuccessful. Well, then comes along the opportunity to partner with Google. As you all are probably well aware that Google went to launch its first fiber gigabit city. And so Google did consider Longmont very seriously. Meanwhile, the city was very interested and started campaigning to become that Google gigabit fiber city. And so really there was a ton of media attention, a lot of energy around it. So the next time the city tried to repeal Senate Bill 152, it did pass with a 60% approval. Then the ground was really laid to pursue the broadband fiber network. So next was approving of the bond. So the city, no problem, we'll approve that $45 million bond. We want our own fiber network. So in 2014, the brand Nextlight was born, and construction began to deploy this fiber network. Not long after, Nextlight was deemed the first gig city in Colorado, and it was named the fastest ISP in the country by PC Magazine. So a lot of work, but then it started coming together. So where are we today? Today we are about 90% fiber enabled. The goal really is probably 92 to 94%. Unfortunately, there are some properties, some mobile home parks, some apartments, MDUs, etc., that still are a little reticent to sign an access agreement, probably because they're getting some revenue and some door fees from competition. So despite the fact that we have residents in these communities, these mobile home parks and apartments, going to city council and saying, I want Nextlight, there's nothing we can do. So it's unfortunate. So that's why we'll never beat 100%. But we are today at 22,700 delighted customers. And I mean, they are delighted. It is really remarkable how many positive comments we get time and time again. So really proud of that work. And of those 22,700 customers, there's about 800 families or households that have benefited from a new offer we deployed in the spring. We have a couple of income qualifying offers, and we were going to do this anyway. We were waiting for ETC status, but then the pandemic hit, and we said, we've got to make internet accessible for everybody. So we deployed an offer as low as $14.95, which is 100 meg symmetrical, which is the best in the marketplace. Our customer count was about 58%. Sorry, I'll speed up a little bit, which is really high. You back out those households that don't have internet, we have an effective rate of 65 plus. So 2 out of 3 households have our service. About $17 million in annual revenue, speeds as high as 1 gig, and rates as low as $14.95, as I mentioned. So a couple of things I'll share with you in terms of critical success factors. You have to have deep community support. It's essential. For one, you got to repeal Senate Bill 152. For two, you've got to approve the bond. And then lastly, you have to have people that love you and trust you, and they're willing to sign up for service with you. So that was a huge piece. The next is having inadequate competition. Not having a robust, ubiquitous fiber network is really a challenge for communities. So having that or not having that fiber network really is a good start to say, well, maybe we do need to build our own fiber network. Also having that LPC, Longmont Power and Communications pathway. For one, there was a virtual pathway in terms of customers already knew the city, they trusted the city, they had valuable, reliable electric service. I trust them to deliver fiber broadband internet. And then you have to have valuable customers for every part of your customer base. Not all competition focuses on that. They tend to put fiber where they know they're going to get a return on investment. Our commitment is to truly give every citizen access to fiber internet. So a couple of do's and don'ts. This list could be longer. Do simplify your service offerings. Don't make it complex. Do seek public-private partnerships. Right now, we're engaged with the St. Vrain Valley School District to build out another $1.3 million in network to really help students and teachers get affordable access in an alternative fashions. You have to be prepared for speed tests. So if you're going to deploy gigabit fiber, make sure you have gigabit because customers will test it. Fortunately, we do. Competition usually gets up to about 900, but 900 megahertz, but not up to, or megabits, excuse me, but not up to the 1 gig. Also, you have to closely manage your contractor utilization. It's kind of inevitable that you have to augment with contractors, but they can get a little costly at times. You might spend up to $400 for a drop and an install. You have to work closely with the MDU management. As I spoke to, sometimes they will keep you out of the building. So it's really important to have those partnerships. But usually the city recognizes the value of the offer and they are begging you to come to their property. A couple of quick don'ts. Don't use proprietary equipment. We had a situation where that company had a patent infringement and the equipment was no longer made. So don't make that mistake. Don't trust your contractors implicitly. They are very valuable. However, sometimes we found some drops being laid just 4 inches below the ground, not a safe place to be for your plant. And then don't skimp on your fiber capacity. When you've got the trench open, put as much fiber in as you can. We actually exhausted some capacity in some areas, so we've had to go back. And then don't forget to build into your budget some rehab and maintenance. fiber is incredibly reliable. However, sometimes you have aerial running and the squirrels still love to chew on fiber. So that's been a little bit of a challenge for us. And then lastly, don't let TV be a distraction. We did go into the Mobi TV with a marketing partnership that subsided and we didn't continue it. And then Mobi TV went away. So I say focus on what I'll say Teresa calls the big fat dumb pipe. But to me, a dumb pipe leads away to a lot of smart stuff. So I think focus on having that reliable connection. So really, where are we headed? So what's coming soon? We're trialing right now some Wi-Fi 6 devices in the home to further propagate the wireless signal, because now you've got people hiding in every corner of the home, going, attending classes or work or Zoom calls or whatever. So make sure that, you got to have your Wi-Fi in all areas. So that's something we're trialing. We're also in conversations with a consulting firm to look at being a more fulfilling provider of network support and helping people really understand what a smart home may mean for them and how they can better deploy some of those smart home devices. So that's something that we're looking at doing. And then we probably have a few other little basic and very related service offerings up our sleeve. But again, we're trying not to distract ourselves too far from providing that incredibly fat pipe that enables smart, cool stuff. So let me finish with our vision and mission. Really, we got busy, we started building, and we kind of knew what our vision and mission were, but we hadn't created that till about 1.5 years ago. And so I think it's very fitting and aligns with the city. Excuse me. And so the vision really is a fully connected Longmont that is empowered with the resources for life. And we mean everyone is connected. And then secondly, the mission is to deliver our neighbors, all of those neighbors, a world of possibility by providing fast, reliable fiber connectivity while being accessible and just plain old easy and fun to do business with. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Valerie, so much. We appreciate having you today. Bob, we'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, is there any questions from our board for Valerie?
Hey, Bob, it's Rick Garcia-Dola.
Yep. Hi, Rick. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Valerie. I'm Rick Garcia. I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Local Affairs, State of Colorado. Thank you for that quick overview. Very impressive. My question is, has the city or NextLight provided any kind of assistance, financial or otherwise, to low-income families that have had challenges keeping their kids online, attending out of classroom, face-to-face school during the pandemic? And if so, what are some of the activities that the organization has been involved with?
Absolutely. Great question. And we certainly have. So as I mentioned that we rolled out some income qualifying offers back in the spring. So that was, I think we started building them in March and sold our first in April. And anyone that was part of the free and reduced lunch program or benefited from Medicaid, any other subsidized program, we allowed to get our internet for $14.95. At the time, it was a 25 meg symmetrical, which was the best in the market. We decided to quadruple that. So for $14.95, households can get 100 meg symmetrical internet at their homes. Furthermore, we've had in place longer than that a program called Sharing the Next Light, and that is partly funded by the Longmont Community Foundation. And we partner with children, youth, and families to provide absolutely free internet service for families with students in the St. Vrain Valley School District, also attending the community college that are receiving Pell Grants. As long as they're on some type of program, then they will qualify for free internet. That program still has some space in it. Furthermore, I mentioned that we partnered with St. Vrain Valley School District on the state fund, that $1.3 million Connecting Students Fund, and they are attributing thousands of dollars to that Sharing the Next Light program so that we can continue to offer free service for qualifying households. We also allow customers and employees to contribute to that fund as well, and it's been very successful.
Are there any other questions from the board? If not, I will open this up to the public if there's any general questions from the public attending today. If you are interested in asking a question, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any. Well, Valerie, great job. I followed your, I know a lot of your council members that spearheaded this and helped push it through. So it's always been fun to watch. I will say it is a little bit easier for your organization to jump into this area because you had your power side of your business, your utilities, and that made it very feasible, and for the rates and price, you had the infrastructure to do it. So great job solving something way ahead of a pandemic. Who would have ever thought? But your organization does a great job and continues to be a leader nationally. We're proud that you're in Colorado and that you helped guide the way in this topic. So thank you very much, Valerie, today.
My pleasure, and I have to say a special thanks to Teresa. She makes sure I'm aware of what's happening in the marketplace when I sometimes get bogged down with basic operations. So she's been a tremendous advocate for everybody trying to get access to broadband. So she does a terrific job. So
absolutely, well, great job, Valerie, and to your community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob, sorry to interrupt. It looks like we do actually have a question from the public. Melanie Wolf.
All right, Melanie.
Melanie, we're not able to hear you. Okay, Melanie, if you would like to chat me the question, I can send it on to Valerie, or I can also provide, yeah, go ahead, Melanie, you can type the question to me. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Bear with us a moment.
I think that should be the tagline for all of these. We still can't hear you. Are you on mute?
She says, I was just curious about how they verify people for the digital inclusion program.
We do ask for paperwork, and we're pretty accommodating and flexible, but we do allow people to bring paperwork into our front office. So we do have a counter, kind of a customer service counter that people can come into. So we just need some proof or form of any kind of assistance people may be receiving, and we usually grant that, and then we make a point just to follow up if we haven't received the information.
Okay. We have one more question from Ron Valdez. Please take yourself off mute.
Hi, Valerie. My name is Ron Valdez. I own a company that we're actually providing free broadband for students in the Roaring Fork Valley using wireless technology. Have you guys used wireless at all as a part of broadband service?
Yeah, actually, I'm in the Roaring Fork Valley today myself. I love it out here. So, Ron, that's a great question point. We had a wireless network stood up, kind of a wireless mesh in the city. We turned that down. There was some, I think, abuse overnight and use of that network. So, but now we're in the process of really refortifying that network for the purpose of giving students and teachers special access codes to get onto the wireless network. We're also putting in some wireless network where there are some spaces or high density of students in need as identified by the free and reduced lunch program. And so we're trying to fortify the wireless network in those particular areas. We also know that students have some housing insecurities and instabilities at times, and they can be pretty transient throughout the community. So we want to make sure that there are numerous ways that they can go get online. But I'm open to ideas, so maybe, Ron, we can catch up afterwards. We've got a couple of different technologies that we're looking at trialing on top of what we've done historically.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to discuss in more detail. It's been a success story. Yeah, a lot of the kids are able to access their Google environment, and so yeah.
Fantastic. Not sure where I can find you. So I'm Valerie Dodd at longmontcolorado.gov.
Sounds good. I'll send you an email. Thank you.
I will put your contact details, Valerie, in the chat for everyone. One final question. This is from Amy Switek. Are you or other partners thinking about the digital literacy piece to build skills of individuals? Also, do you see an interplay of small devices and energy use?
Yes and yes. From a Next Light perspective, we partner with other entities in the city for education and outreach to make sure that we are narrowing that divide, which sometimes isn't just access, it is literacy. And so we have departments that either reach out to students or other households that may be lacking some of that information. So we do partner to do educational things. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do any live events or programs, but hope to do that more. So we certainly recognize that, but we have other entities, just down the road that we can partner with. And then the second piece on the small devices and related to electric grid and et cetera. The city of Longmont, and I can't go too far on this because I'll quickly get out of my comfort zone, but they are looking at implementing the AMI technology. And tied to that is a way to kind of incorporate it into the smart home to where people have better access to control their energy consumption during off-peak times if they want to save money, et cetera. And so I think there's an eventual tie into that. So it comes back to having that intelligent pipe to the household that you leverage for really managing the services within your home, including electricity. And I hope that was your question.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. Appreciate you taking all those questions.
My pleasure.
Ready to move forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, thank you, Valerie, for joining us today. All right. We'll move right along into the Southern Ute update with Mr. Mills.
Yes, thank you. We're going to flip this on you just a little bit. The Ute Mountain Ute are going to go first. It is my honor to introduce to you from the Ute Mountain Ute tribe, Bernadette Cuthair. She's the Director of Planning and Development. She is currently also serving as Interim Economic Development Specialist for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. In these roles, she has been instrumental in generating over $60 million in new grant funding for the tribe since 2015. Her personal responsibility includes overseeing multi-million-dollar grants and contracts for as many as 20 major community development projects annually. And again, it is my honor to introduce to you Bernadette Cuthair.
Good morning, everyone. Bernadette Cuthair, Director of Planning and Development. And I'd like to say thank you for the invitation for this broadband invitation and presentation to the board. And, I'll go ahead and start with my first slide, brought to you by Ute Mountain Ute Tribe, connecting Toyac to the world. Ute Mountain Ute Tribe's Broadband Needs and Plan Forward, presented by Bernadette Cuthair, myself, Director of Planning and Development, Ute Mountain Tribe, and Diane Cruz, Tribal Broadband Consultant, Neo Connect. Next slide, please. So talk a little bit about snapshot about the Ute Mountain Tribe. Located in the Four Corners region, you'll see the two purple areas consisting of two geographic areas, Toyac, Colorado, south of Cortez, White Mesa, Utah. We have approximately 2,000 tribal members at this point in time. Next slide, please. So here's the why. Why broadband? Ute Mountain Ute Tribe economic conditions. Most reservation communities are very rural, isolated, and have high poverty and unemployment rates. Nearly 40% of Ute Mountain Ute Tribe residents live below the poverty level. Unemployment is more than double the state's unemployment rate. The estimated median household income in Toyac is $25,605 in comparison to $55,387 in Colorado. Per capita income is $13,073. compared to 46,242 in Colorado. And there's some tables here that are citing the captions of the problems of poverty, per capita income, free reduced lunch, graduation rates. Next slide, please. So another why, poor health and low life expectancy. Living and working on the Ute Mountain Reservation are harsh. Here are some conditions that I'll cite here is teen suicide, extensive substance abuse, domestic violence, crime, tobacco use, poverty are extreme. The life expectancy is only 55 years. Without broadband access, tribal members cannot access telemedicine resources, further exacerbating poor health conditions. Key social and health outcomes indicators with the Ute Mountain Reservation. As you can see, there's some citing here again, premature death, poor health, low birth rate, teen birth rates, uninsured, children in poverty, high school graduation rates. Next slide, please. Here's another why. Why broadband? Lower education achievements. 1 in 3 children on the reservation live in poverty. More than half of the combined population of Toyac and White Mesa is under the age of 26. The reservation has widespread education underattainment. 40% of our youth graduate from high school compared to 75.4% in Colorado. During the pandemic, many of our youth did not attend classes consistently as they did not have reliable or sufficient broadband access to be able to attend remote or online classes. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over at this time to my co-presenter, Diane Cruz.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many colleagues and friendly faces and names. Great to be here with you. NeoConnect is a consulting firm. We've worked with many of the communities in Colorado, and we are working with the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe. We have just finished the broadband plan, and we have several initiatives underway. The current broadband services in Toyac are dismal. There is only one provider, and that provider is stating on the broadband OIT maps that they are serving the community with 25 to 50 megabits per second in download speeds and 3 to 6 megabits in upload speeds. They are claiming a couple of locations are also receiving up to 100 meg. But the reality is that when you go online to try to order services from this one provider, the most that you can actually order from the provider is 3 megabits in download and 500 kilobits in upload services. So the entire reservation in Toyac does not have access to broadband services as defined by the state and by the FCC. The next slide, please. Also, in terms of access in and out of Toyac, which impacts backhaul services and middle mile connectivity, there's only one provider that is serving the region. We have been working with a number of stakeholders in the region to help improve broadband services through partnerships and grant funding. If you can go to the next slide. Those stakeholders include the Southwest Colorado Council of Governments, CDOT, Montezuma County, and several other regional players. We have been working with the Southwest COG on connecting the region with middle mile fiber, and we just recently did a study where we met with the folks at CDOT to identify their needs for kiosks and cameras and maintenance facilities. And we mapped out their needs as well as other key stakeholders in the region in terms of their connectivity in and out of the region. And we are in the process of finishing their entire middle mile and last mile plan. This could not get off the ground without grant funding and subsidies. And so the tribe has applied for and will continue to target several grant opportunities to build out the infrastructure. We did have one recent success story where we were EDA for a grant application for connectivity from Cortez to the entrance of Toyac. And that is a conditional approval of $2.8 million. There's still a few hoops that we need to go through to get our grant award and contract in place. But that is one recent success story. In the White Mesa area, which is in Utah, I'll just touch briefly on that. We applied for a Community Connect grant, and we're also at the same time working with Emory Telephone with their grant application. They were awarded a grant for the schools to connect the schools with fiber. So we will be continuing to monitor that and work on improving broadband in White Mesa. In Toyac, we did submit a grant application through DORA for a fiber to the premise network within the community of Toyac. And we're closely monitoring the appropriations of last year that was set aside. There's a $1 billion set aside for tribal broadband. And we would like to encourage working with the state to improve not only last mile services in the region, but also we think that the entire state could benefit from better middle mile connectivity and working in conjunction with the state of Utah, state of Colorado, and New Mexico. Next slide. So it's probably hard to see all of the points on this, but these are the highlights of the shovel-ready projects that are underway. We have identified $23 million in shovel-ready projects that the tribe is pursuing, and we will, take every opportunity to leverage grant funding that's available through the state as well as at the federal level. One thing I wanted to point out is the governor's budget is discussing, or the governor's set aside a budget discussing potentially $10 million in set aside for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. And that is about half of what our needs are to really improve broadband services for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe. And so again, that's not enough, but we will certainly leverage that to potentially secure other funding through other programs, hopefully working with the state and OIT in doing so. Next slide, please. So we do have a full plan. We would love to share that with everyone. We realize that we have a limited amount of time to talk today. But in summary, there really is a need for the tribe to improve broadband services. Their economic conditions and education and healthcare conditions really are severe, and without adequate broadband, the pandemic has just further exacerbated their economic conditions and problems that the tribe is facing. And so improving broadband services for the tribe, we often talk about how it improves economic development, education, healthcare, and other conditions, poverty. But this is really a true case where improving broadband services will make a huge difference to the tribe in making a difference with all of those various economic conditions and healthcare and education attainment. With that, we'll turn it over to you all for questions.
Do you have any questions from the board?
Hi, this is Jeff Kraft with OEDIT. Thank you for the presentation. It was interesting and informative, and really great evidence for how important broadband is for groups and communities across Colorado. So really appreciate the presentation. I just wanted to offer up, and I know this is, you're probably aware of this, but OEDIT did work with Ute Mountain Ute organization on trying to figure out a way, and this is a tough lift, right, to have opportunity zone equity investments support broadband. So we're definitely interested and committed to, if any future conversations, if that does get any traction. We had a really good event about think it was 6 or 7 weeks ago. And so just wanted to less for the Ute Mountain Ute, but for other community stakeholders, because I think the conversation was a great one with Ute Mountain Ute, but that there is this possibility of structuring a federal opportunity zone investment with an opportunity fund to support broadband, to provide private equity to build out networks. And we're really interested and eager to see if there's a model to make that happen. And we do have a small team that supports opportunity zone investments. I'd be happy to work with any stakeholders who think that might be a viable possibility in a region or a community in Colorado. Just wanted to sort of reiterate that point.
I think we'd love to talk to you about that more. The Ute Mountain Ute Tribe has set up a tribally owned entity that is providing ISP services to the communities. And if there's a way to leverage their investment as well as the opportunity zone investment funds that are potentially available, we'd love to talk to you about that as well.
Great. I'll Jeff Kraft, and I'll put my information in the chat. And I know that the people that are running the call can also get that to you as well.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right, I have a quick question. Do you mind going back one slide, Ed? I think you're driving. All right, so just a question, and similar to what was asked from our public earlier with Longmont's presentation. So I see down on number 4, you're doing fiber to the home, and I've taken several tours of Towalk and really listened to all your needs and so forth, and of course I was there as CDOT trying to assist where we can. The question I have is around, you're looking at 534 homes going in for about 6.1 million. With the statistics you shared earlier, how does the tribe look at doing education support? Knowing that I've been there before and knowing the challenges that the Ute Mountain Utes are going to experience, how do you feel you're going to overcome adoption of broadband and show the benefit of it? As you know, I think some of the population needs some assistance in this area. So I don't know if Bernadette, if you can answer that, or if Diane can.
Sure, Bob. Thank you for that question. I'll go ahead and respond to that with the information that at what point we're at as far as education-wise for the Ute Mountain Tribe is that we have been recently approved through the state for a charter school. And our charter school is named Guerat, and it means bear in Ute. Guerat Academy School. So this is part of the initial start of that conversation as far as the education piece. But to the point, what you're asking in number 4, more importantly, is that during the pandemic, it's been really challenging for the students. And not only that, but I can say this with certainty. I'm a tribal member. I live on the reservation. I work on this reservation, and I live with the lack of broadband. There are times that, even in my line of work, that I experience spotty internet. And I'm sure that each of these homes also experience the same spotty internet too as well. So we're not at 100% capacity. We're not even, I would even say that we're not even at 50% capacity sometimes. So in saying this, that the tribe has worked diligently to tap into partnerships with nonprofit organizations such as RISE, and to provide either wireless connection on the immediate, and also, RE1 school district has provided Chromebooks. And there are some students that are not within the RE School 1 district that they're homeschooled. So the RISE opportunity, the grant has provided some of that equipment for students as well. So the key to Ute Mountain Tribe is that it's very important that we have sustainable and long-term partnerships to help us with these things that we can't always address within education. So the secondary piece to this, that long-term, is that the tribe is looking to develop this school with a beginning of K through 1. So that's what they're looking at. But in their education plan it's a total build out from K to 12, and perhaps some college later on, and a college, maybe some building trades kind of school. So it would be a comprehensive build out. So to say this to number 4, that it's the educational piece that we're really looking for, within the community. And right now we just can't deliver because, like I said, we have spotty internet right now. So so it's all the way across the board. But I'll just leave this and say that, with this question, that our partners are very important to the Ute Mountain Tribe. It'll make a difference with the success of the students, once we have, the equipment they need, the proper connection, internet connection, so forth and so on. So we open up worlds of opportunity for them once we get the broadband. So that's what we're looking for.
Thank you,
I hope
Bernadette.
that answers the question. So.
Well, I want to elaborate a little bit more on it, if you don't mind. I think, the question I have around it is more around your older population, not necessarily your younger population, but your older population's adoption of internet and, being able to leverage it and understand it and so forth. 534 homes, is that all the homes? Is that 100% of the homes, or is that just a portion of the homes?
No, it's the entirety of the community of Toyoak. So to answer the question about how our elders play into broadband, is that to put it on the table and say our families are built, with their grandchildren are living with grandparents. And the elders, they really have had a particular challenge because they're not equipped, number 1, to be teachers. Number 2 is they're technically challenged, if that's the addressing that you're looking for. So in some of these, the RISE grant, it has allowed us to provide navigators to those elders, and provided the opportunity for them to be able to assist their student online with just, trying to get, either email set up or whatever it might be. The simple tasks that we take for granted every day is, because they're not in the technical world as far as, our elders, but it does provide them good foundation standard tools to help their students. So the navigators have come in and did they're doing an awesome job to make that gap, close it a little bit further. So that really helps with the student outlook. So.
Oh, that's great, Bernadette. And you did answer my question, so that's great to hear. Because I know that some of that is a heavy lift as well. It's not just putting the asset in the ground, but it's also, the education part for all generations over time. And then my last question is, how much of your existing provider that's there, how do you know a percentage of how many homes they're actually providing some sort of service? So if you have 534 homes, your existing provider, are they only doing 10%, 20%? Do you have any of those statistics?
Diane, do you want to go ahead and respond to that, please?
In terms of offering service and the full definition of service, meaning 25/3,
yeah.
I think that there's only a handful of buildings that the one provider is providing that level of service.
Okay.
All of the other addresses that we looked up, we cannot order anything, more than 10 megabits per second.
Okay.
The provider did receive CAF2 funding, but they received enough funding to build out 10x1. And there's only a smattering of locations that they provide that level of service. So that provider doesn't really provide service at 25/3 for the entire community.
Okay.
And then keep in mind that line number 4 that you're highlighting for the 6 million, a big portion of that is the connection from Cortez to Toyac.
Okay.
And so the 534 homes that we identified within the community that we are leveraging, hopefully DORA grant funds, is a subsection of that $6 million.
Okay.
You know what, I want to say one other thing then too. So I think your previous question, Bob, was really highlighting on digital literacy and adoption of broadband. And yes, it's certainly a challenge. In the beginning of the presentation, Ed made the comment that Bernadette has been responsible for implementing over $60 million in grant funding. And some of the grant funding is obviously earmarked for broadband and connectivity, but there's a whole other set of programs that the tribe has applied for funding in digital literacy and workforce training and education that speak to adoption of broadband services. And so those programs are also being leveraged in addition to the establishment of the charter school. So, you know, maybe that addresses some of your adoption questions.
Yeah, I just know that it's a challenge for, you know, the U-Mountain Ute tribe. And I just was making sure that, you know, I think we need to have awareness where, you know, it's not just easy. If you don't have internet today, how are you to teach somebody internet if you don't have a way of communicating, especially how rural this part of the state is, you know, and making sure that the U-Mountain Ute tribe has the support and the tools to be successful around, you know, adoption. And it sounds like you guys are all going the right direction. So sounds great. Good job.
Agreed. I think, you know, we can't really address adoption until we have access,
right?
Because it doesn't make any sense to try to, you know, provide training on how to use it if you can't really access it. Yeah. But I absolutely agree with you. In addition to the challenges regarding access, we will then follow up with digital literacy and really leveraging that infrastructure to improve the conditions on the tribe.
Yeah, you know, when I was out there, the discussion around, you know, education, remote education, which we've talked about, but also telemedicine, right? I mean, that's equally important, as well as access to medical remotely. So that's very important as well. So that's why I was asking about the older population, because, you know, I think our next presentation, the Southern Utes talked about that as well, as access to good medical care remotely. So appreciate it very much. Is there any other questions from the board? All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you
Diane.
very much.
All right, Ed, do you have the next one too?
We do. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you from the Southern Ute Indian Tribe, Chairman Melvin J. Baker, who was elected to lead the Southern Ute Indian Tribe in December of 2020. Mr. Baker has previously served 4 terms totaling 9 years on the Tribal Council. Through his tenure, Mr. Baker has served as acting chairman, vice chairman, and council member. And again, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you Chairman Melvin J. Baker.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to do our presentation to the Broadband Board. I want to say good morning. Welcome to our sister tribe, Ute Mountain, as well. I'll go ahead and start with my presentation. As mentioned, I was elected in 2020 for the chairman's position, December 2020. So as I stepped into this, you know, our team has done a really good job looking at our needs of our reservation. So I'll go ahead and start. Thank you. My ancestors, the Nuchi or Ute people, are the original inhabitants of what is now the state of Colorado. The Southern Ute Indian tribe is one of 2 tribes who call Colorado home. We are very fortunate to remain on our ancestral homelands. The Southern Ute Reservation is in the southwest corner of Colorado, just south of Durango and Pagosa Springs, along the New Mexico border. The reservation is home to a diverse mix of residents, including our tribal membership, first descendants, enrolled members of other federally recognized tribes, and non-native citizens of the state of Colorado, with a total population of over 13,000 within the reservation's exterior boundaries. My reservation consists of varying terrain, from plateaus and valleys to the west and mountainous forests to the east. It is remote and rural with little access to infrastructure such as interstate highways and railroads. As technology has advanced, the reservation has been left behind. We recognize we are lacking another piece of critical infrastructure, and that is the ability to access quality, affordable broadband service. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the absolute necessity of broadband access in every aspect of the lives of the residents that live within the boundaries of the reservation. We are at great risk of falling further behind as exponential advancements in technology widen the gap that already exists for my people. We must act quickly to bridge this gap and connect ourselves to each other and the rest of the world. The gap and deficiency in service on my reservation was made a tribal priority and one of that has been since been evaluated due to the current pandemic. We not only need to develop critical infrastructure, but also need programs that address digital inclusion. Maintaining consistent government operations has proven to be challenging for our tribal council members who consistently manage connectivity issues. Council members working remote from home must be able to access video conferencing tools from home in order to participate in critical business meetings with their state and federal peers. We have had difficulty connecting to meetings on numerous occasions. Our utilities department has had issues fielding service calls because bandwidth constraints disable phone systems at sporadic but reoccurring times, making it difficult to provide essential services to tribal members and other residents of the reservation, putting service at risk. We cannot take calls, pull up account balances, or process banking transactions. Our community, especially our elders, cannot utilize important health resources such as telemedicine. About 1/3 of our students cannot connect to virtual learning platforms. About 1/3 of our tribal membership reside off the reservation, whether attending school or looking for employment. The reservation's connectivity and access affects tribal members' ability to connect with family members and loved ones. This also creates a challenge for tribal members both on and off the reservation to participate in cultural and language preservation classes through virtual platforms. This is especially challenging for us as you people who traditionally draw strength from face-to-face interaction. We're also suffering economically, losing the ability to begin or continue business through e-commerce. This last year has also highlighted the varying social impacts caused by the pandemic. Our lack of access to important, rapidly changing news and the ability to connect with loved ones in a safe, socially distant manner is a detriment to our society. Much like other parts of the state, we have dealt with the issues caused by the pandemic for the last year. But on the reservation, we have experienced just how vast and digital divide is for my reservation and community. Prior to COVID-19 and in early relief bills, the tribe attempted to access funding, but were disqualified for not having a more detailed plan because of a lack of sufficient engineering and mapping data, which is self-reported by providers. There is no accurate representation of broadband coverage on the reservation. This has historically resulted in spotty, confusing coverage maps that cannot possibly describe the real and challenging situation we are facing with connecting our students, prioritizing the health of our tribal community, and ensuring families can stay connected. Although the state maps are a definite improvement from what the FCC provides, they still do not tell the full story. To appropriately address my reservation's broadband issues, the tribe began work on a broadband plan in late 2019. The tribe began to expand its own resources to pay for preliminary engineering for a crowdsourced speed test mapping project, which has provided a more realistic picture of the problem, a problem we have spent years attempting to resolve. The tribe has continued investing its own money to conduct a study from an independent contractor based in Minnesota. We have worked closely with both state and national representatives and federal agencies to examine funding programs and options. The tribe has received access to the 2.5 gigahertz wireless spectrum on our reservation through an FCC program. We met with representatives from numerous regions across the state of Colorado and Indian country to learn from their successes and mistakes. The tribe is considering leveraging regional partnerships to use existing towers and rights of way with the intent to speed construction and reduce costs. To better demonstrate the lack of service we currently have on the reservation, these are the current results of our speed test mapping project. As is shown, we don't only have a broadband issue, the residents of the reservation are living in a digital desert. This project has returned that greater than 94% of participant households shown in red have less than 25.3 service, and more than 86% report less than 10.1. Even more, many have reported that they have no service at all. Some of our tribal council members have reported having no service. Using what we have learned, we have engaged a Denver company to expand our design study into a shovel-ready plan that meets our requirements to serve our membership now, not at some unknown time in the future. This plan exceeds the 25.3 standard of service and will keep subscriber costs at an affordable level. The plan we have developed utilizes our 2.5 gigahertz spectrum and a network of fiber-connected towers to bring minimum 50/10 service to over 80% of the residents on the reservation and 95% of tribal member homes. We are building a hybrid solution to leverage our 2.5 gigahertz spectrum for fixed wireless in addition to fiber to the home at select sites and middle fiber for future scalability. Our next step is to secure funding to make this program a reality. We anticipate this plan can be accomplished for an estimated cost between 10 and 12 million, and we are ready to start building now. If we can obtain funding by April, we can complete this build within a year while rolling out services as it becomes available. The tribe has used its own dollars to engage a grant writing firm to help us research and evaluate proposed legislation and allocates funding for rural America and Indian country. We have identified programs such as USDA Reconnect and the NTIA's tribal broadband funds in the COVID relief package that could and should help us. Unfortunately, while it was awarding the tribe a tool with the 2.5 gigahertz spectrum, the FCC was also in the process of auctioning off digital control of our tribal lands. They have awarded over 70% of the land area on our reservation in the recent FCC 904 RDOF and 903 CAF2 auctions. These awards have now eliminated the tribe's ability to qualify for almost every single federal funding mechanism available, but more importantly, has threatened our sovereignty and diminished our own self-determination. The FCC award did not require important tribal consultation. The tribe has been stripped of its self-determination over lands within the reservation, protecting irreplaceable cultural resources, and disallowed any component of project management, including rights-of-ways, oil and natural gas infrastructure, and timeline. The tribe's shovel-ready plan will help bridge the digital divide between the reservation and our neighbors. Waiting for another company to begin its project on our reservation could leave an entire generation behind and cripple any capacity building indefinitely. There is no indication or reassurance that the winning bidders will be any more successful or timely in bringing broadband to our people. We can no longer wait for programs such as these FCC auctions. We can no longer wait for private industries who have been extremely slow to move on the reservation because of our speed, out population, and topographical challenges. We can no longer allow outside forces to determine where we receive services, which technologies will be deployed to our people. All of this emphasizes the absolute necessity of the proposed state funding. It is imperative for our tribal community and for all Coloradoans living on the reservation that we be connected. Utilizing that extensive planning that we have already completed, the tribe is ready to make an immediate impact. The generous state funding will empower us to get started now rather than wait months and possibly years to see what may materialize outside of our control. Help us take our digital future into our own hands. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And at this time, we're ready to answer any questions. And I do have our CIO, Mr. Justin Roller, with me. If there's any questions you have for us, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Any questions from the board for the Southern Utes? I don't see any questions from the board. If there's not any questions, I'd ask the same kind of question that I asked of the Ute Mountain Utes to the Southern Utes: is your adoption plan, and kind of maybe Justin Roller could weigh in on it. Just what is your plan, and what have you done to make sure that once this happens, what's your strategies around adoption?
So we actually already have one grant that we've received that we can use to buy equipment for elders, because one of the obvious things is once we bring people broadband, if they don't have gear, you can't get on the internet. So we're leveraging a grant that we've already received to buy equipment for elders. We've received other grants to buy equipment for the students and the educational programs at our Montessori school. And then we're working with Colorado Trust and other groups on grants to really get into digital literacy and digital inclusion, to fully build that out. So we understand, and Chairman mentioned it earlier in the presentation, this is a multi-pronged process. We have to provide long haul fiber, middle mile. There has to be fiber to the home, the wireless solution. There has to be equipment, and there has to be training. So and we've been working on this with the Tribe Strategic Planning Department for over a year now. So we're well into that, and very much understand that is a key component in making this successful. We can't just run fiber to nowhere.
Thank you, Justin. Any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none. Chairman and Justin, thank you very much for your time today and joining us and educating us on your program. We appreciate your attendance today.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, Sarah, do we have the agenda? Oh.
Apologies, hold on one second.
Yeah, I don't have it up on my side, sorry. And thank you, Justin, for posting his contact information. Actually, we have everybody, Bernadette and Diane. So.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. Bear with me one second. But the next presentation should be OE High with Carrie and Stephanie.
All right, Carrie, Stephanie, do you want to go ahead and start your presentation?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Great. So I am Carrie Pykoch, the Director of the Office of eHealth Innovation. I don't believe Stephanie is here today, but I'll pause and see if Stephanie, our State HIT Coordinator, is available. Yeah, so you're stuck with me. So as the Director of the Office of eHealth Innovation, we have been moving forward a number of telemedicine, innovation, and health IT, health information technology infrastructure projects to support increase health and reduce costs across the state. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about that and then highlight the opportunities for broadband investments and alignment and collaboration. So over the last, I would say, several years, we've developed a statewide strategy for this work called Colorado's Health IT Roadmap. Within that, we recognize that broadband is a critical infrastructure component to do all the great things that we love to do with digital health, including telemedicine, that you just need sufficient broadband. And over time, especially with the pandemic, that desire has increased exponentially. About a few years ago, I think that everyone speculated and said 25 megs was sufficient. And what we've come to find is that that is not sufficient for all the things that families, doctors, patients need to do in this new digital kind of age. And so where we're hearing and advocating for is 100 megabytes in our communities. And I think we've got a long ways to go as a state. The work that we've done that I'm highlighting here today is we did a few telemedicine projects at the beginning of the pandemic to see, do patients want this? Do providers need it? Will policymakers and payers pay for it? And what we found is yes, and that broadband coverage, especially in our eastern plains and southern parts of the state, is still a large gap. Many do not have even sufficient 25 meg coverage, and to really be able to do not just telemedicine, but education, commerce, and all of the great things you need to up the coverage. We funded not just a analysis project, so we can share those links for you to dig into what people like about the digital version of healthcare, as well as the need to connect the pipes. But what we found was that there's still, again, lack of access there. We funded a number of telemedicine projects, 34 to be specific, and we'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but focused on rural as well as urban, but primarily rural, because we want to make sure that people had access to care when they needed it most, with emphasis on both physical and mental health, and then health equity focus. And then we're convening across the state a number of learning collaboratives on the Eastern Plains. That's one of the areas that we're convening to hear about what's working and what's not, and broadband continues to be an issue. And then last but not least, I will share one of the projects that we're working on that we're looking to leverage with any sort of broadband funding is our rural connectivity project. This project is focused on enabling critical access hospitals, certified rural health clinics, and federally qualified health centers with one, technical assistance so they can connect to our state's health information exchanges on the kind of the digital health side. Records, whether virtual or in person, they don't flow. And so one of the core infrastructure components that we're investing in is in this health information exchange connectivity. But to do that sufficiently and have the more sophisticated electronic health records, you need upwards of 100 megabytes for broadband coverage. And just want to highlight that what's nice about this program is we're working with Colorado Rural Health Center to visit every single rural health facility in Colorado and do an assessment of what's actually happening on the ground in terms of broadband coverage, their technical systems and staff capacity. We bolster that a little bit. So I'm excited to share that we kicked off the next phase of that project. And so Colorado Rural Health Center is working to deploy that across the state. And then again, another opportunity for broadband. So in terms of telemedicine, how big it's gotten and the opportunities there, I think there was some speculation on would people feel comfortable doing a virtual visit? And we're in these square boxes all day, every day. And would you be comfortable talking to a therapist for depression, anxiety, or even some light counseling on substance abuse? And what we saw is that as in-person visits declined, that there was a 600% increase in telebehavioral health visits for those things. And, I think especially in our rural and frontier communities, there's a lot of stigma with driving down the street to go see a therapist. And the pandemic enabled a nice opportunity for people to access it and use that. And I think that they're going to continue to do that, at least in the interviews that we've done with patients and their providers. And again, there's been luckily some changes to policy and rules within our state and federal government to allow for use of phone for certain visits if and when broadband is not available. But again and again, we keep hearing from both patients and providers that if they can't see the patient and assess the situation to get that visual kind of data, it's not a sufficient clinically appropriate use. So I think there are instances where phone works just well, but for most, what we're hearing from our doctors and specialists is that they want to at least see how people are doing. I think visual is such a huge indication of how well or how well not someone is, to at least make that decision on where they should go, if it's an emergency room or urgent care, or if they can stay within the comfort of their own home. So I think it's nice that the policy is flexible and payment for various types of modes, but the preferred method from clinicians locally that we're hearing, as well as in national research and guidance, is to have that video piece and to do that sufficiently, especially in a household. Kids are online, families are trying to work, and if you're doing a virtual visit, as well as if you're getting some sort of constant telemonitoring, that you need sufficient broadband. So the value, I think, to the states and patients and providers is that by doing the video visits, you can reduce the need for emergency room visits. We've seen this with some of our more innovative projects. For example, in Teller County, they're leveraging ruggedized iPads and going into the field, and they're able to dial up a virtual provider and visit folks. And over I would say like 70% of those visits have reduced to no transfer to the emergency room. And I think that the opportunity for ongoing adoption and education is just ensuring that the clinicians can explain, as well as some public service campaigns, that you don't always need to go to the emergency room, and if you get the sufficient diagnosis and treatment in your home, that's just fine. So we've seen some uptick there. We are also seeing some, targeted areas for maintaining, for example, through dialysis and certain chronic care conditions, having the ability to share that data in a protected way with your provider is needed. But if you only have cellular service, if it's spotty, it's not an easy thing, even though it could be asynchronous. To do that, there are some evolving technologies that store and forward that information, but you have to use the device and then drive 25 to 50 miles out of your region to upload that information to a hotspot. So our goal is to advocate, especially in our rural communities, for enhancing the middle mile and getting that fiber to the home, because that's really the place where people, especially with a chronic condition, you don't want them to have to drive out of their way, especially right now. The number of avalanches and the weather is pretty extreme, so we want to make sure they're safe in their homes. Other things I can share, what we're hearing, in addition to the broadband devices, cell phones, laptops continue to be an area where our rural safety net providers that serve primarily patients with Medicaid and Medicare insurance coverage, is that many of them do not have cellular devices or laptops to do the work. So we've been funding a number of projects to release that, but recognize that there's still a gap. Looking at the census data, we can see that there's about 2 million folks in Colorado that have access to some sort of smartphone or laptop or tablet. Census data is a bit old, so I think that it has gone up a little bit, but do think that that is a gap, especially in a house. Even if you have one laptop or one cellular device, how do you divvy that up to ensure that, the mom and dad, they have access to their work, and if there's a really sensitive counseling session that goes on, making sure that someone has that unique device to do that and they feel it's in a protected way. We did hear or see within the census data that about 100,000 people in Colorado do not have any cell phone. And so that's something that I underscore. Again, this data is a little old, so it may have gone up a bit, but I think what we're seeing is that people need still access to their devices as well as subsidies to support with that. For the telemedicine projects that we funded, about half of them are going towards hotspots, devices. The remaining funds are going towards helping clinicians reconfigure their best workflows and see what's the best way to incorporate that with their in-person visits, as well as other technology and infrastructure, such as our health information exchanges. Oop. I think I've hit home on this a couple times. This is a map from the Colorado Broadband Office, what we know today. We are hearing that coverage is actually worse than what the map displays, and that it's spotty at best, especially in the areas that are like this eastern region. If I was a weather person, I would point over here and show that the areas, specifically Lincoln, Ray, have pretty significant spotty coverage at best. In terms of shovel-ready projects, what I would highlight is we've done a lot of work talking to consortiums and experts in the field about, given the short time horizon for investments, where could we really partner with existing folks on the phone, as well as areas. And what we've learned is that if you can plug into, not to get too granular, I-70 and their fiber optic infrastructure. It leads to more significant opportunities for speed to actually getting connected in those rural communities, as well as some cost savings. And so one of our recommendations, this doesn't cover all of them, would be to focus on areas in Lyman, specifically Lincoln County, and look at to see how we can make that connection. And then based on our great presentations from the tribes, that, you know, as they're making those investments around the tribal areas, there are some areas not within the tribes that are still spotty and best, like Montezuma and Dolores County. And so looking at how those efforts can bolster and support. The other thing that I'll mention, you know, in terms of the next year to 2 years, the Colorado Health Foundation is conducting a assessment of each of the opportunity zones to look at where the biggest impact could be from a health perspective, and where we could pull in some national investors to bolster that. And so we're having conversations with them. We're having conversations with Colorado Rural Health Center, just to make sure that as we're targeting things that we're looking at, where there's consensus and energy and opportunity, and where we can leverage our existing contracts and telemedicine grants, also our contracts with Colorado Rural Health Center, to make a pretty significant impact. So that's where I'll leave you. We do have some resources that I'll share for people. Health at Home is a website that we created to kind of demystify what telemedicine is, and give some information for consumers about virtual care, and add a little bit more information. So would kindly ask that folks share that, especially as you're looking at other projects. And then I've left my website, as well as a link to the research that we've done. But thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. And again, would just advocate for 100 megabytes as we're looking at doing health, education, and economic recovery in our communities.
Well, thank you, Carrie. Any questions from the board? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much, Carrie. You got off easy today. Good job. All right. Next up, we have from Delilah Collins, Connecting Colorado Student Grants. Delilah, are you there?
I am.
All right, you're up.
Backlighting going on. All right. Good morning, everyone. Delilah Collins from the Colorado Department of Education. I'm here to give you an update on the Connecting Colorado Students Grant Program that was passed through House Bill 20B-1001 in January. So I just wanted to come to you with a little bit more information on this one. So the background is that this was $20 million that was awarded from the general fund through from the governor's office. We are making those awards fully dispersed upon approval. So each applicant that applied and was awarded will get the full amount of their award up front. We did have some priority criteria on that award. However, we didn't need to use it because of the $20 million, we did not receive requests greater than the 20 million. So next slide. And that's just a little bit of background information for you to kind of go through. These were the parameters of where they could use their funds. So the expenses that could be used were around subscribing for broadband services for staff and educators and students, providing access to the internet, purchasing data plans and hotspots and Wi-Fi antennas and satellite connections, and also addressing the broadband infrastructure needs in communities, which there was significantly limited or not available broadband. So here's some data that we have from our application. First, I realized that I did not put in the slide deck actually the amount of requests that received and the amount that's actually heading out the door now. So I can update the slide deck and provide you with that information once these slides are shared. But we received over $16 million in requests, so, which is the reason why we did not have to prioritize, because all of the applications that had allowable activities in them should be funded once we're done with all of our analysis and going back and forth. There's about $12.8 million that's heading out the door right now, which that means is that the grant award letters are being signed. They all have to be physically signed by someone here at CDE and then mailed out. And then electronic fund transfers are being set up to deposit funds into those applicants' bank accounts. We received 39 applications, and of the 39, there were 19 that were in our metro, submetro area, 18 in our small rural, and 2 BOCES, Board of Cooperative Education Service Agencies, applied. And of the BOCES, typically those are small rural districts, rural and small rural districts that make up that BOCES. The awards range from 13.5 million to 2.9 million. So we did get a wide variety of those requests. And our purpose areas kind of fell within those districts that were looking for services to provide internet access for students and educators and providing devices to the internet. So that's mobile hotspots, MiFi, jetpacks, things like that. So 23 of our requests came in that area. And the last 16 came in to either expand the Wi-Fi capacity in a specific area by installing antenna and mobile hotspots and satellite connections, or addressing those infrastructure needs in the communities in which broadband was significantly limited or not available. And that includes extending fiber, building out fiber to some communities. So how the funds are being used, we've got about 9,000 plus devices that were requested in the application. This is what was requested. We will have to go back out and ask for additional information for reporting purposes to find out exactly how many were deployed. So that's just what we received requests for. The other request came in for, like I said, extending the Wi-Fi network from the school building. That's the radio towers, antenna, Wi-Fi towers, and short-range wireless transponders, and then extending fiber from the school buildings into the community, into the neighborhoods. So that is the other area where we saw the other amount of money being used. So just for a little bit of background information, this information that I'm sharing is very high level. The exact kind of districts that received awards and what those projects are will be posted to the website as soon as we're done awarding all of the funds. So it's not, we typically don't like post all of those awards when there's still folks that are working to get their applications finalized. So like I had mentioned before, where we are right now is we have our grant award letters that are being signed. We still have 2 applicants that we're following up with that we need additional information from. And then there is about $5 million in remaining funds. And so in order for us to access those funds, we have to request an extension. This award was scheduled to be fully awarded on February 1st. We were able to obligate a lot of those funds by February 1st. However, we didn't receive requests for all of the funds. So we have to go back to see if we can get approval from the legislator to use the last $5 million. One of the things that we are kind of discussing is that if we do get that extension, what's the demand on those funds? How would we get those funds out the door? Would we run another competition? Or would we go back to those that have already been funded and ask them if they still have additional need? Those are some things that we're still working through, but we have to first find out if we can get an extension. So the last slide is just my contact information, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have in regards to the grant program and what's happening at this point. I also provided a link to the CCSG website. And on the website, you'll be able to access a paper copy of the application so you can see exactly what applicants are required to submit. You will also see the first grant application, the first $2 million that we awarded. We do have a link to, or a list of all of those awardees and what those projects were for. And then once we finalize this, this award cycle, we'll post those grantees on the website as well. So I'm definitely happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Delilah. Is there any questions from the board? Oh, the board's been quiet today. A lot of information to take in. Well, if there are not any questions, I want to thank you, Delilah, for presenting to us and sharing what you and the great work you're doing. So thank you very much for attending today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Hi, Sarah. Do we have anything else on the agenda? I didn't see anything, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
That's it. That's the end of the agenda today.
All right. Then if we don't have anything else, do I have any matters from the members or the board before we conclude today's meeting?
Yeah, this is Brian Martin. I just wanted to thank everyone who presented today. I think as you said, Bob, there's a lot of information, but we really appreciate the update and just helps us to frame how things are going. So thank you to everyone.
Absolutely. And I'd echo the same thing Brian said. It's just amazing the work, and we're all trying to move that needle to help our community. So we all appreciate that. Any other questions or comments from the board? Yes, Sarah.
Just really quickly, for those of you who are interested, all of this information gets posted on our Broadband Advisory Board website, which you can access from our broadband board, or sorry, our broadband website, which is broadband.co.gov. And the presentations are available under the date of the meeting, as well as the recording that is taken every time.
Thank you, Sarah. All right, if there's no other comments from the board, we'll go ahead and conclude. We'll see you next month. Take care and stay warm.